Underground Bunker. This is your proprietor. Wednesday afternoon. I'm all messed up on my days because I went to California, came back, and wow, what was waiting for me? Peter Reichelt, thank you so much. Old friend of ours, Austrian journalist. Burst onto the scene back in the 90s when he was the one that was helping a German journalist crew fly over in base for a really great series back then about a missing Sea Org woman. Well, he's kind of come out of retirement recently and has been sending us some great stuff. Today is something else. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please, you got to sign up for free emails at tonyortega.substack.com. Every morning, 7 a.m., you'll get in your inbox our daily story ad-free. Sign up for emails, and you would have gotten today's story, which is Peter let us know that back in 1994, David Miscavige gave an interview to an Austrian investigative magazine, which translates to profile. I'm not sure how they say it over there. It's Profil. And that was an interesting time then, because in David Miscavige first became leader of Scientology after the death of L. Ron Hubbard in 1986. And he gave his first interview ever live on Nightline to Ted Koppel in 1992. And you may know what a disaster that was. And he's never given a live interview ever again. He has given a few others. One that I think most people either have forgotten or have never heard about was a few years later, he agreed to something with NBC, but it was much more canned. You actually see, many years later, Alex Gibney used footage from it, and you could see Marty Rathbun helping him prepare for an interview and stuff. This was much more controlled, and I think it's basically been hard to find. The guys who made it approached me a few years ago. They wanted to put it out again, but you had to pay to see it. I'm not sure if many people did. But anyway, that was the other TV interview he's done, is with NBC, and it was a lot more under Miscavige's control, I think. And he's given 2 print interviews. We know about the one he gave Tom Tobin at the Tampa Bay Times in 1998. And of course, the big pressure then was the Lisa McPherson case. And they were the Church of Scientology itself was charged with a crime in her death. And so Miscavige was under all kinds of pressure and decided they had to give Tom Tobin and the St. Petersburg Times, then Tampa Bay Times today, an interview. And as far as we knew, that was the only 3 interviews he ever gave. Well, Peter now lets us know that even before the Tampa Bay Times interview, in December 1994, Profile magazine came out with this really interesting piece about Scientology and interview with Miscavige. Why an Austrian weekly newspaper? Well, in the mid-90s, Scientology was embroiled in controversy over efforts by the German government to investigate it, ban it, put restrictions on Scientologists in the country and where they could work, that kind of thing. And so Dave and Scientology struck back with this advertising campaign where they claimed that Scientologists were being treated like Jews in 1930s Germany. Well, German people didn't like that very much. And so with that hot controversy going on, he decided he better give an interview, I guess. It was arranged by 2 of his Sea Org people who were Austrians, Kurt Weiland and Klaus, and I don't know how to say Klaus's last name. It looks very difficult for me. I'll have to check that with Peter. But anyway, they set this up. Those 2 Sea Org guys set this up with the Austrian journalist, Wolf Lauder, who investigated the piece and did this interview. So again, it's remarkable because David Miscavige has almost never talked to the press at all. And Wolf Lauder asked very good questions. And Miscavige's responses can be a little odd in this thing. Now, let's talk about translations a little bit, because it's really interesting here. Wolf Lauder interviewed David Miscavige on the 11th floor of the HEB building in Hollywood in like November 1994. It was published in December. The magazine article is in German. So there was already one translation of what Miscavige said to Lauder and translated for the magazine. Now, 30 years later, Peter Reichelt has translated it back into English for us. I asked him to send me the scans so that I could double check a few things. There were a few things in Miscavige's responses that I thought were a little odd, and I wanted to make sure, I wanted to check Peter's translation. So I just ran some of Miscavige's responses through Google Translate. They're very, very close to what Peter had given me, but there were a few things that I felt needed to be tweaked. So that's I've done the best job I can between what Peter gave me, what Google is saying, to give you, I think, probably a very good translation of what the article says. Now, I'm not claiming that this is exactly what Dave said word for word, because remember, it went from Dave speaking English, translated into German for the magazine, and now translated back to English. I think, Peter has asked Wolf to go back and see if he can't find the original tapes, and maybe we can get an audio of Dave saying these things. But there are a few odd responses in here that readers are really reacting to today. And I encourage you, if you haven't seen it again, please go to tonyortega.substack.com. I'll just highlight a couple of them here for the video. Right off the bat, Lauder asks Dave, how many Scientologists are there? And here we go. Remember, this is 1994. They don't do this so much now these days, give these numbers. But Miscavige said, today there are around 8 to 10 million Scientologists worldwide. In addition, there are approximately 500,000 people each year who try Scientology for the first time. So if that were true, and 500,000 people were getting into Scientology every year since 1994, you'd have something like 20 million Scientologists around the world. We know that's not true. We know they've never had millions. Many people do buy a book or go to a course, but as far as active Scientologists, we think it's in the 10 or 20,000 level, not millions. But what's also interesting in here, there's quite an exchange when Lauder is asking him about, the money that Scientologists spend and how much, Dave is arguing about having tax. They had just gotten tax exempt status the year before, which is super key. And at one point, Lauder points out that the German government had accused Scientology of money laundering. And this is Dave's response. I don't have to put up with that. I am not a criminal and do not engage in money laundering. This is propaganda, comparable to the events in Germany in the 1930s that led to the Holocaust. Wow. Did he really say it that way? I'd love to get the tape to see if he actually said it. That's a wonderful I am not a crook moment from David Miscavige. Look, we've heard from so many people that have come out of Scientology that have talked about being extorted, being under pressure to turn over money they didn't have. There's just a legacy of it of decades. And it's really interesting to see David Miscavige saying, I'm not a money launderer. Quite an interview. There's a lot of other moments like that in here. Please give it a look. TonyOrtega.substack.com. I'm going to keep working with Peter. I think he's got some more stuff for us. Of course, what everybody wants to see now that they've read this story is that what we added beyond the interview with Miscavige is that Peter interviewed Lauder now about how this came together. And he explains the way that this interview actually happened. And mentioned, and Lauder told Peter, after this article came out, Miscavige was very unhappy with it. Very unhappy, and sent him this fiery letter and accused him of all kinds of things. We have asked him, please, if you can try. I know it's been 30 years, but gosh, I think we'd all like to see that letter from Miscavige to this Austrian journalist. But Wolf Lauder, what a great job you did, and I'm really glad that you got a chance to interview Miscavige, something that so many of us have always wanted to do, and The last interview he gave was in 1998. So that's 26 years now. Yeah, 26 years since he's given an interview at all. Well, he's got a lot to hide. We know that. And I know some great questions I'd love to ask him if I had the chance. But when Wolf Lauder had a chance, he has some great questions. Check it out. TonyOrtega.substack.com. This is your proprietor signing out.